Hi, so this is our last Timex Sinclair user group meeting of the year. It's our holiday meeting. Everybody here has a holiday beverage, I trust. This is the Sunday meeting that we hold for folks who are not in United States time zones to join us and make it a little easier on them. So we've got at least one person from Portugal, and see, we have Tim from New Zealand, but he joins us all the time. And I think we have somebody from Argentina. Since our last meeting, somebody suggested to me, because I spotted an interesting looking auction on eBay, and John Mobley, who's with us today, said he had a bunch of stuff that he needed to get out of his house. Somebody suggested that I put together a GoFundMe, which I did, and a bunch of folks jumped in to help donate to that and pay for shipping. John moved incredibly quickly to get things out of his house, and a lot of what John had, excuse me, had belonged to Bob Swoger. And so I want to talk a little bit just about Bob, especially because John's here and John can also jump in. Bob, this is what I know about Bob. Bob was a very active member of the Chicago area Timex users group. And he was involved in publishing the newsletter. He wrote a bulletin board system that ran on a DEC PDP mini computer at his work. He worked at Motorola, and he went through a couple versions of PDP mini computers. He talked about this in the Chicago area Timex user group newsletter. Bob is a huge fan of the Timex computers, and especially the 2068. He had I believe he had a Larkin disk system. He might have had other disk systems. It's not clear to me from the notes what he's written in articles and stuff. And he wrote a program for the Timex 2068 called Logic Call, which is a bit of a play on words also, because the idea was that it did things in a logical way, and what it was was a menuing system for your 2068 plus disk drive. So you'd put this disk in your computer, the disk drive with Logic Call on it, and you could have multiple programs on that disk, and it would give you a couple key shortcut to loading those programs. And this was kind of important at the time because the Larkin disk operating system, it didn't quite directly leverage the disk keywords that are in the 2068. So you couldn't directly load, you couldn't just use the load keyword to get something to load off at the disk with Larkin. You had to prefix it with print number 4, I believe. Print number 4, and then colon load, and etc. And print number 4 colon erase or move or whatever. So this is a bunch of keystrokes that you had to enter in order to get stuff done. And so he wrote this front end to all that, and it would load things for you, and when you were done, it would go back to the menu system. So make your life really easy, or at least a lot easier. So one of the things that happened in the late 80s was Timex went out of the computer business in 1984, in February of 1984, and there was sort of a contraction of people using Timex computers, and the user groups also kind of shrunk a little bit. And by about 1988, a guy named Mel Nathanson had proposed a nationwide Timex Sinclair user group, and Mel and the other folks who tried to work on this, had a great idea, and they just could not get it advanced very far along. And after a couple years of that, with it sort of bouncing around and not getting to the point where it became an actual thing.
David, can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yeah.
At that time, because you're kind of the go-to person for knowing how many user groups were out there.
Yeah.
So were they trying to consolidate all of them into one, or were they just trying to get better communication between
They
them
were trying
all?
to get better communication, right? So this is pre-internet, right?
Okay.
This is like
And Presume.
What's that? Presume.
And Presume, yeah.
You had CompuServe. You had the source. I think Delphi. I don't remember when Prodigy came online. But those were all really expensive, right? And people also had bulletin board systems, but they were local, within a town or a region. And so there was not a lot of, communication across the country. User groups would send each other their newsletters, right? And so there'd be some communication, but it just really depended upon, whoever did the newsletter in the user group to remember, and it was kind of expensive. Postage was going up at that time. That was a period of postal inflation for first class. So Bob got tired of waiting around. That's really what it boiled down to. Was he reached out to a guy named Don Lambert and said, let's just do this. Let's just make it happen. We're going to put out a newsletter. And that was the start of a newsletter called Sir Clive Alive. And that newsletter published for 12 years, 4 times a year, until from 1991 until 2003, which is, to me, just astounding, right? That here's a computer where the company went out of business in 84, and Bob and everybody else, and then people, across, they emailed to they mailed to as many user groups as they knew of, and people from across the country subscribed. They regularly published the list of subscribers in the newsletter. All of these issues are archived on archive.org. You can get to them from timexsinclair.com. And so Bob was just hugely influential in maintaining and helping people, go forward with the Timex Sinclair. He was also, this is completely unsurprising, he was also a lifelong amateur radio person, a ham, as they say. And there was a big overlap between the ham community and the home computer world back then. Hams would get into this stuff. And he wrote a skajillion articles. I mentioned the Logical thing. He wrote a bunch of versions of that at a little company called Gator Software Development, and sold copies to, people all over the country. Sold them through Rod Gowan up in the Pacific Northwest, who was probably one of the very last vendors of Timex hardware and software. I mean, Rod kept going until the 90s as well. So with that, John, do you want to jump in and add some to that? Because you actually know Bob personally.
Oh yeah. Can you
Welcome, John?
Yeah. Thanks for joining, John.
Well, I've known Bob probably 15 years or more. I know him through the Glenside Color Computer Club. I think he helped combine all the failing Cocoa clubs into one big club, and Glenside started hosting Cocoa Fest, and Bob got people's mailing address and email address into his database, this little basic program he wrote to track people. And Bob was the secretary of the club for many years and took minutes of the meetings, and and then he gave me a Timex Sinclair 2068 with a Larkin system so that I could play around with Logical. And I was able to connect by Skype to him and show him the computer screen of the Timex Sinclair 2068 through Skype.
Oh, so wait a second. So this is recently. I mean, if you're talking about Skype and just getting a Timex, we're talking in the last few years.
Oh, no, within the last 20. Skype's been around.
Like with video?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, okay.
I had this device that would take composite video and convert it to a USB, and I was able to use that video on Skype somehow and share my screen or whatever. And he was able to see Logical run again. I guess he would sit in his lazy boy chair with his laptop and then watch me run it. And he had me do a printout of Logical, and it printed out on this like 4-inch wide piece of paper, a long printout. And he had me stuff it in a toilet paper roll and mail it to him. And then I set him up with DCC in Windows so he could emulate the Coco, and he rewrote Logical to run on the Coco.
Wow.
And I was the newsletter editor, and he would write articles for me to put in the newsletter about Logical. And he was sending me articles often, and I kind of thought people were tired of hearing of Logical, and not too many people were expressing interest in it. But Bob was helping me edit the newsletter, so I really couldn't say no to him. So he kept publishing articles about Logical, and then someone in the club decided that we should give out thumb drives to everybody who came to the Coco Fest with maybe something about the Coco Fest written on the thumb drive. And Bob decided we needed to install a copy of Logical onto every one of these thumb drives.
Funny.
And yeah, that's Bob and Logical.
So John, I actually know a little tiny bit about the Glenside Community Color Computer Club, and you guys started your annual event, and the first one was called the last annual color computer club meeting, and you've managed to go on for what, 20 some odd years now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. You keep holding the last one.
Yeah. I think they said that if we had a year where we didn't make enough money to cover the cost, that that would start to mark the end of doing the Coco Fest.
Right.
And it's been recently, it's been getting more expensive for us to put on the Coco Fest. Some of these hotels only want to rent out their ballroom for 8 hours at a time. And we would have to rent it out like 3 times on Saturday and 2 times on Sunday. And the cost would be really high.
Yeah.
We found a place to do it this year. I'm not sure how much it's costing us. but it's considerably more than I think we paid the previous year. And so
How many attendees do you have going to this, John?
about 150.
Holy crap. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So I posted a link in chat to the webpage I have about Bob on the website, and it has the video of Bob demonstrating Logic Hall at the Vintage Computer Fest Midwest 6, which was in 2011.
Did you post that to everybody?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it
just
went to, it's in the meeting
okay.
chat.
Okay. It's just the one to Bob Sweet. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
And there's Bob running his 2068, and it looks like some sort of you know, surplus kind of disk drive system hooked up to it. So anyway, John, you sent me 4 boxes of Timex stuff, and just off the top of my head, there's a number of books in there that we haven't scanned yet. Adam has been asking for at least a year now for some missing pages from the Timex 2068 technical manual to be found, and there was a copy in there, so now we've found those. Adam did a deep dig into this speech synthesis program that a guy named Tad Painter had written for the 2068 a number of years ago. And it turns out it wasn't actually speech synthesis. It was just the Tad had recorded himself into the 2068 individual words, and you know, you could string together those words and have them spoken. And in some of the sales material that Tad had made, it mentioned that there was a device that you could buy from him to do your own recordings in case you didn't want sort of a North Texas accent on your speech synthesis. And so one of the things in that box that you sent me was this cassette tape that said HS68 driver. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. What's that? And a little circuit board that was just bizarre. It has a cable coming off of it, and it has a battery connector. And I went and looked at it, and I was like, what does this go to? Because there's no input, right? Well, the input is this teeny tiny electret microphone, the same kind of microphone that is in those little portable cassette recorders, right? If you've ever taken apart a portable cassette recorder, you'll find this little tiny circular thing. That's the microphone. And this is the device that Tad Painter talked about, that you can plug into your 2068 and you can record your own words. So I'm going to send that to Adam, and he's going to record himself, hopefully successfully, and then report back.
I will do that. Yeah,
on the success. But there was a bunch of tapes, like a bunch of tapes, and because of the folks who participated in the GoFundMe, I was also able to buy this other collection of tapes off of eBay, and I now own more tapes than I have ever owned in my entire life. And it's a good thing that I'm taking off the week between Christmas and New Year's, because I'll be spending a lot of time using my little tape recorder, or tape player rather, with the USB device to record these things into the computer. And what I plan to do actually is just upload those raw recordings to archive and let you guys have fun with them and try to I'll label them, with what the cassette says is supposed to be on there, but I figure getting them recorded and uploaded as quickly as possible, especially for Adam, who runs out of things to do.
I don't know about that. I do have a comment to make about that. Before you go up and record, like, 100 tapes or whatever you have, record like one or well, maybe 3 or 4, and give us, I don't know, maybe between Ryan and I and a few other people here, we can check them out. This way you don't waste your time and record them, then they're not usable.
Great.
Because that could happen, and it could be a simple fix that you could do to fix the problem, and then rather than have to re-record things. But at the same time, if you only have X amount of time, just record them, and then we'll look at them later.
Yeah. But anyway, so I wanted to thank everybody who donated and give you an update, and thank you, John, for volunteering to share the collection. Or get them out of your house. I'm not sure which was the more important part for you. And yeah, I've got stuff sitting over the actual. That's why I keep looking over my right shoulder, because that's where the stuff is all piled up. I have things to do. So I'm not the only one who's been busy. Adam, you and Ryan especially have been playing video games.
Actually, we had a Timex meeting yesterday with 3 of us, got together for about 8 hours, and that was a good time. I see that Carl joined us just now or a few minutes ago, and yeah, I don't know, maybe we can talk about that a little bit, or
yeah, jump right in.
Maybe later. I don't want to. Okay.
Well, you know what? When you say maybe later, you bring up a good point.
Yeah.
And that is, both you and I, and now Ryan has suggested meeting agendas, meeting topics to cover. We need to gather those ideas someplace. What do you guys think? Is everybody here also on the groups.io mailing list? Is there anybody who's not? I mean, is that maybe a good place to collate those things?
I like the idea of that. It
okay.
Good. In fact, if you were to post like the next meeting, with a week of time in between, then we could reply to that post and give some ideas of what we want to talk about or what have you.
Okay, cool. I'll do that. I'll make sure that I send out the email before Christmas. That'll
All
be
right. Okay.
Sure.
Did somebody just make fun of me?
It wasn't Carl. Yeah. So since to that point, is there anyone here who'd like to bring up something? Because I know that Ryan was saying in the spring when he first started joining these meetings that he felt like he didn't really have time to jump in at any point during the meeting and say what he wanted to say. So maybe we can have that open now rather than
let's do
later.
That. Yeah.
And don't be bashful, even if you've never spoken really before here. Please jump in.
Yeah, because we've got 16 people today. Oh my gosh. I don't think Ryan's paying attention.
Oh, well, I was just waiting to see if anybody was going to say anything.
You start, Ryan.
Well, I was just saying that there's when we had had like the guest, I guess it was mostly guest speakers, as I recall. If we let them go too long, then there's not a whole lot of other time.
Mm-hmm.
Once you subtract some of the stuff at the very end, and that's fine. But maybe you sort of interleave them, and then I got to thinking, well, the other thing was that you're trying to find out, what do I need to get started in the retro computing in the Timex Sinclair context, and you might get some pointers of stuff, but then I thought, well, maybe it might be useful to have occasionally just topics of some of the tools and things. But then I thought about, well, if that was like then having the speaker that takes up a lot of the time, and that not necessarily all these things everyone's interested in, if it's worth, trying to set up some sort of side meetings for special topics is one possibility too. And those would just be going over things like, a little bit about the emulators, some of the utilities for like tape files and things like that, and whatnot that maybe people could suggest they want to know more about.
So Ryan, I'm kind of chuckling because you're suggesting that we should have special interest groups, that we've reached a point of critical mass where we need to start thinking, about. And to me, that's awesome. I love it. I can't believe that we're here. But yeah,
unless
totally
we thought
agree.
we could do, those little topics, kind of like as we had guest speakers, which I guess, is essentially the same, because obviously someone's going to probably lead each one of those. So essentially be a speaker presenting something, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm totally with you here, and especially with the things like, as you said, the sort of the getting started, because there's a hurdle, there's an information hurdle, right? And especially too with the emulators, that's a
they're not well documented, I found.
Exactly right. I mean, when I started using the Zesorix, I was like, what, how does this thing work? And I emailed the guy and he's like, it's self-documenting, in essence, is what he said. And I'm like, oh, it's not.
Well, I mean, there's just stuff like, it's like, oh, I can load, in the tape, like in Fuse, in the tape, I can mount not just a tap file, I can mount a WAV file. Well, I don't know wherever it really said that, but when you get the file dialog, it shows supported formats. It didn't really say which ones, but those are it's putting a filter, so you see WAV files, if you have them show up, you think, oh, maybe it loads WAV files. Well, sure enough, it does. It's just,
in fact, I
little
only learned
things
about
like that.
I only learned about that this week, and was it you or Johnny Red who was able to load uncleaned up like WAV files that were directly recording from the tape, from that Timex library tape, directly into Fuse without even cleaning them up with TZX tools? Was that you or?
Well, he might have been too, but certainly I have with some of my tapes and that in side A, at least, of that library tape.
Right.
I haven't tried
amazing
side
to
B.
me.
Yeah, Fuse seems to. I have not had success in Zesorix loading a WAV file yet. I'm not sure what it wants. It tries it. It just never seems to succeed for me. And yeah, so Fuse winds up on it slows the emulator down. So you'll see the emulator speed go down. I've had it go down to like 10%. And it seems like it's, processing the audio. And as it gets the bytes out, and then it's feeding into the emulator. So it's slowing the emulator down so it doesn't get ahead of its processing. That's what I imagine it's doing. I don't know why it would slow it down otherwise. And then it'll load these things. And I've not, I had several. I didn't even do any normalization or anything. I just recorded it. It looks like a low level, but it doesn't really care, because I think I've read also that it's not so much the volume as it is the transitions too. But it does seem like it's doing other processing.
Does the CPU load go up?
Guess I've not really looked at that.
Okay. I mean, it seems to me like that would.
Yeah, I need to look at that.
Yeah.
But also, I've not had the luck with the TZX WAV file converter that others had.
Are you talking about the TZX tools that I've been using and Paul Thacker has been using?
Yeah, maybe I'm not holding my mouth right, as they say.
Well, they work pretty, at least the ones on TZX tools worked okay. Although honestly, once I have converted the file to a TZX file, using the same exact set of tools, I cannot get a WAV file back out of them that will load on a real piece of hardware. Although when I take that TZX file that was created and use a different piece of software, I get a WAV file that has been cleaned up and is perfect that will load on my 2068. So I don't know what's going on there.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm.
Hmm. So these sounds like good, topics for like a side meeting, like Brian was saying, and then we can refer back to that at regular meetings and say,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, if it
if
gets
you
posted to YouTube.
if you want to know more about how to do this thing, go see that video.
Yeah, and I do want to say that I have like a couple of hundred videos on YouTube, and by far my most popular one is my setting up an emulator for the Astrocade. I mean, way like probably 10 times or 20 times more popular than any of my others. And so I would say anyone would appreciate how to set up a Timex Sinclair 2068 emulator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And that's not going to be me making that, by the way, because I don't know. I
Wait,
barely
but
get
you're the
into work,
perfect
but
person for that. If you don't know, and you've got
Well,
Ryan.
there are different things. I've been limiting myself in getting into this with my Raspberry Pi setup here, because it's set up here on the workbench. And I've not really gotten around to getting that all set up on my Mac at all, which I guess, David, you're more familiar with since you've been doing that, I think. And then I don't know if you're running, are you running on the Mac? Are you running like the GTK version, or do they do something else? Because on my Linux, I've got an SDL and a GTK version.
Of Fuse?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's somebody else's compiled it. It's whatever's available from the Fuse website.
Okay. I guess I'll have a look, but yeah, I guess the GTK one gives you kind of a window menu, whereas the SDL one, it's meant for like kind of more like full screen, so the menu appears graphically on top of the Timex window. So I haven't seen what the Windows version or the Mac version is yet. And then of course in each one, I guess the ROMs are in different spots, and I don't know that it always tells you where, but I discovered where they are on the Linux version anyway.
Yeah, you have to go digging for them. Yeah, that's pain. There's a lot of pain points with emulation, and I guess I've just sort of let those go in my brain. But yeah, I'm writing these things down, and I really like the idea of a couple of us getting together and working through that process.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned side meetings, but it could just as well be like it's in lieu of a speaker thing. It's just okay, here's a topic.
Yeah.
And obviously someone or one or two people are kind of presenting the thing, possibly.
So
like with a Fuse emulator, maybe some others jump in for the Windows and Mac and Linux specific bits, something like that too.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be a good thing to record, and then it would benefit from being edited down into a tutorial.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Where each of us gives our own, like Adam, you're mostly Windows for emulation.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, and I use a Mac, and Ryan, you're doing it on the Pi, which is essentially Linux. I mean, it is Linux. So we could do that and make a tutorial.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe it is a separate recording so that it could be edited.
Yeah, so folks can just go there and get that info. That's be really cool. It'd be really helpful.
How good is the speed of these emulators on a Pi? Because a Pi is a pretty minimal machine.
It's really good. It's just, I mean, the Pi, isn't it a cell phone processor? Or at least it started out that way?
It's an ARM chip.
Well, you're slagging off the ARM chips here now.
Okay.
I think even the basics ones aren't they running like 400 megahertz or something?
Oh no, this is like what is this? I got the Pi 400, which is the keyboardy version. And so it's like a Pi 4, which is like a quad core ARM something or other. I don't remember exactly, but I think it's running at is it 1.5 or 1.8 gigahertz?
Yeah, so that's way faster than the 4 megahertz that we're on the.
You think it'll keep up with all the special things that?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course you have PiOS and, other stuff too, but still, I mean, come on, that's a order of magnitude faster than the original hardware.
I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I haven't
guys...
actually tried this, how fast I could crank this up to. I know I see it. In other words, I just now purposely said, okay, let's run at 200%. And I guess I haven't really been doing much. And it certainly seems okay with that. I know when it's loading tapes, it can, if you're like looking for a program by name and it finds this isn't it, it'll run that percentage speed up real high because it's skipping ahead on the tape. So it calculates what the equivalent speed up is and zooms to the end of that program and then hits the other one.
And I know too that this is probably somewhere because it's just, I'm sure somebody decoded it back in the day, but what exactly makes up these tape files, right? I mean, what is the computer putting out? The high frequency for the high and the whatever the low frequency for the low and the time delays between these. I'm sure that's documented somewhere back in the 80s. But that would be helpful, I think, for people that are, and that might be part of a tape, kind of.
Yeah, that was one I had thought
specialty.
about, was like you could do one on the maybe you do a little bit. Here's a little bit of how to get around Audacity, for example. And here's what the waveforms look like. And I forget, how are they different?
Well, we're going to have Joe do that because Joe likes to take the bits in Audacity and like cut and paste and put the correct ones there. So Joe will help take care of that. Thank you, Joe.
No, I never said I liked that. I said I did it. It was painful.
But I think that would be helpful for trying to, especially since we're trying to archive these tapes and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it really mattered too much back in the day because I mean, you only had cassette tapes and we weren't doing the kind of things that we're doing today. Where I think it's more important that we understand what's going on the tape so that we can for one, record a file, look at it in Audacity and say, okay, this is good enough. I've got enough amplitude, I've got enough whatever, the signal looks good enough to be able to work on, so you can make a go no go determination on, well, I'm going to start working on this file, or I got to make the file better to begin with, capture a better version of the file to start working with. And that way you can just you can make sure that you see the good transitions, and then your success rate will be better for some of these files. But I don't obviously don't think anybody's done that recently, but I'm sure, like I said, the file format and what's it doing on the tape is documented somewhere back in the day. But of course, not with the tools that we have today, right? We didn't have Audacity and things like that back in the 80s. So, and we weren't loading tapes, from another computer into these Timex back then. So, it's a whole new, and the emulators and all that kind of thing too, right? So anyway, just kind of an idea.
Yeah, one of the things I'd been actually doing is exploiting that, I can run multiple emulators at once. So I've got, like, I'll be recording in Audacity. I'll record off the tape. And in one emulator, I've loaded the that utility from the Fort Worth Library one, the header program. And so I'll load what I've recorded, I'll load into that, and it just see if it can read that little header bit. So that didn't take very long. And if it can read that, then maybe the recording was okay. And then in the other one, I'll say, okay, load the whole program and see if it gets through it. That's been my workflow here recently.
So David Solly just noted in the chat that he's been able to load WAV files into the Windows version of Fuse, but that he has had to have really clean recordings and filter out the hum and then normalize that recording to get successful loads.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that those
I've
that
had to do that sometimes. I'll notice when I look at the waveform, yeah, there seems to be some noise, and some of that it's there sometimes. Like I was telling Adam that I found that this little portable cassette recorder I had was using, it's not a USB version, but I was holding it ready to hit the stop button. And then I noticed at the end of the recording, basically every time my hand would move near the recorder, I would get noise on
Oh yeah, yeah.
on the recording. And I realized that if I kept my distance from the recorder while it was playing, I got less noisy recordings because of the way this thing was picking that up. And other recorders might not suffer that. I don't know, but there's issues like that as well.
Your big old antenna, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah, I remember that effect.
You have to take into account that the recorders of the time, they were very unsteady. And I've looked at both recordings done by the period portable tape recorders and some done on a modern tape recorder, and it's like night and day. You look at the waveform from the period recordings, and it's like this, and then if you look at a modern recording into a machine that has servo regulation, it's more flat. And if you even record directly from the 2068 or the TS1 1000 into wave creation files such as Audacity or the one by Adobe, Adobe Audition, and I think there's one put out by a company called NAC that has a specifically dedicated wave file app, but you get a nice steady recording from these. You don't get the kind of undulations which have to be normalized in order for the emulators to pick them up, because otherwise you lose bytes whenever the volume drops. Does everybody follow what I'm trying to say?
I think
I
what David's saying is, on a mechanical tape deck, right, you've got belts and things that are driving the tape. And so, I mean, when you fix tapes and you want to get them back into spec, right, there's a thing called wow and flutter, right? So you play back a tape with a known frequency that was recorded on a reference tape deck, right? Maybe one that, like David's saying, it had servo motors that were driving the capstan, so it was very accurate, right? It had very low wow and flutter. So you record a 3 kilohertz signal on that tape, you play it back on your tape, and you go into this wow and flutter meter, which basically shows you the percentage of deviation from that 3 kilohertz, right? So it says, okay, well, it's how much is it warbling, so to speak, right? So you can get a percentage of your wow and flutter, and if it's like like, I don't know, even 1% is pretty horrible, right? 1% wow and flutter is pretty horrible. A lot of the better tape decks, you're talking 0.1%, right? 0.2% wow and flutter. So if you got a really crappy tape deck, you can imagine playing a Timex thing, and your frequencies are varying as you're playing the tape, right? And so when you record into your computer, right, well, none of that applies, right? It's going to record the exact frequency whatever the Timex is putting out. So you get rid of your wow and flutter, you get rid of any kind of mechanical, azimuth problems with the tape head, problems with the tape itself. So, obviously recording directly into your sound card on your computer from either the emulator or from real hardware is going to be the best shot, right? Because you eliminate all of those problems associated with a mechanical tape deck. But on the other hand, you need to understand all those things so that if you do have tapes, like apparently David has a bunch of them now. You know, you're going to run into that problem, you know, playing back those tapes. It depends on whatever, you know, tape deck you're using, you know, how good's the wow and flutter, you know, what's the speed of the tape deck, right? So that's the other part of fixing tape decks, is you need to make sure you get the speed, right? So it's playing a 3 kilohertz signal back at 3 kilohertz. It's not going to be perfect, obviously, but you know, wow and flutter meters will usually give you that information too. You know, what's the frequency that's coming out of it? So that way you can adjust the speed of the motor to get it as close to the 3 kilohertz as possible. So, I mean, all these things just help to improve the computer actually, you know, getting the tape file correctly, you know, reading it correctly, instead of the dreaded failure after you've wasted 5 minutes trying to load something.
And then you have to hope that the tape recorder that was used to originally lay it down was in good shape as well.
Right, exactly. That's there's just a whole line of variables there, you know, that you have to deal with.
You know, we just have to
physical
keep
media.
repeating to ourselves that this is a fun hobby. This is a fun hobby. A fun hobby.
That's right. I'm having fun.
Yeah, but it's digging into these details where, at least for me, the fun really lies.
And you also have to have a persistence and stubborn streak about that watch. You know, that's the way I do a lot of things. You know what I mean? I record it and it won't go, and so I put it into why can't I ever think? Well, I put it into something like Audiotron, and I fiddle around with this, and I reduce that, and I try it again, and then, oh well, I got part of it to load. I'll see if I can jiggle a little bit more and see if I can get it to get a better recording out of that. So I take that recording and I fool around with that, and that's a little bit better. And then you know, you just keep doing it. And I mean, and sometimes you have to be really stubborn. Like I've done it, I've had to make adjustments 10 or 12 times before I finally get the emulator to recognize what's on the tape. And then I sit there and said, well, why did I bother to go all through this torment? This stuff on here is junk.
For another loan amortization program or biorhythms.
And of course, you know, to our detriment, most of the tape recorders that were used, right, to record these program tapes weren't, you know, nobody's going to be recording them on an audiophile quality tape deck. I can't see, maybe, but I'm sure most of them were, you know, shoebox cassette decks or whatever they could find at the time. So they were probably pretty inexpensive tape decks, even back in when they were new.
What are you talking about, Carl? My original 2068 tape recorder cost me $10 at Radio Shack.
Exactly. There you go.
So you
Yeah,
guys were
and you
using
have to
Nakamichis?
Yeah, nobody's using their Nakamichi Dragon to record their Timex programs onto a, you know, a metal tape.
And you have to remember too that a lot of these tapes are over 40 years old, so they're already suffering from bit rot, and the tape itself has become dry and brittle. And
David,
Yeah.
don't jinx my collection of tapes.
So it would be good to kind of, you know, like standardize on a particular tape deck that we all kind of, you know, like. But, you know, I know David's got the little tape deck there with that, you know, just digitizes it and puts it out to USB. You know, of course, my favorite ones are the Timex ones, you know, the 2020 and the, you know, the little Radio Shack mini set 9's a good one, the 10, the 11. They seem to have good mechanisms in them. You know,
but do you know how hard it is to get those nowadays?
they're
Oh.
cheap. They're cheap on eBay, man. They're selling them all the time, especially the 9, the mini set 9.
The
There's
9,
just tons of them, man.
Yeah.
They're like 20 bucks tops, you know, on eBay. But then again, you know, I've refurbished a couple of mine, you know, changed the capacitors that are in them. Obviously the belts, there's a couple belts in there, the tape counter belt, the, you know, the main drive belt. But anyway, you know, you just kind of cutting down your variability, right? I mean, there's millions of cassette decks out there that people have used, and you know, so if you kind of pick, you know, get it down to a certain number of lists, or ones that were kind of more for that specific purpose, like the Radio Shack cassette recorders that were for the computers, right? Although they were probably more general purpose really, but they were marketed right for recording, you know, your computer tape saves.
I have a JIL, which was called a data cassette recorder. The only problem with the one I've got is for, I think some of the contacts must be dirty somewhere, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Dave was very good and he fixed the belts for me, but I'm gonna have to try and find a dedicated contact cleaner of some sort to get those contacts working properly. But that was a very good and reliable machine. And the thing is, it wasn't powered by batteries. It was powered directly through an AC connection. So that meant that the recording speed was pretty constant, and it also had built-in filters that got rid of a lot of the 60 hertz and 120 hertz hum.
So I bought a cassette, you know, shoebox style cassette recorder a couple of years ago from one of the, you know, big box stores. And it seems reasonable. You know, it seems like the old one, you know, that I had in 82 or 3 or whatever. And there's some, I just checked on Amazon, and I think the one that I got is there. It certainly looks like it. And there's a couple others that look like, you know, they're fresh out of 1983. So, you know, maybe one of those modern ones would work for folks. I want to ask, because I see a new person here today, I want to ask Gustavo if he wouldn't mind popping in, saying hi, introducing himself.
Hi, hello, welcome.
Hi, Gustavo.
You can hear me very well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Last time I tried to join at the meeting, but I have a horrible internet connection because I'm not at home. That's why I cannot participate in the previous. And also now with the computer, especially dedicated to the Timex meeting group.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Yes.
So you're in Argentina, right?
Right, correct. Yes, Buenos
Okay.
Aires.
Buenos Aires. Oh, cool. Okay. And Gustavo, you're working with Ricardo on his little project. Is that right?
Right, correct. Yes.
Okay. So for those folks who are not on the email list and, you know, who are wondering what is this little project, Ricardo has taken the CPU, or the folks who make the Raspberry Pi make a thing called a Pico, which is it's just a little plug-in module that has that RP2040 processor on it. So it's an embeddable controller, and Ricardo has taken that and added some circuitry and is working on a thing that you can plug into your 2068 and save and load from directly to SD cards. Is that right, Gustavo?
Right. That is the project. But and also I talked with Ricardo because Ricardo is in the province inside Argentina. We are in a different city, different location.
Okay.
That's why I contact Ricardo directly, because in the meantime, it's better if we are working locally, and also after different discussion, maybe share with the group all the details. We agree with that, and also the next step is to create a group for the development, and also that is possible to modify the diagram of the project. Maybe you are invite David, team, and I. Okay.
Yeah.
4 people in total, and also when Ricardo shared with me the schematic, I detect some problems with the interface with the computer. That's why one of my first suggestion was, please move out the schematic, because have some issues for, especially I don't know if, for example, one of the main problem that I detect is if you see the write to the IO port is inside the schematic as a plus read signal. It's different. Maybe there are switches. The real write of the C80 is different to the schematic level, of course. If you adapt the software, great, working, but I don't know if the schematic is correct. It's a minor changes, okay?
Okay.
Another issue, that's what I detected was regarding the level, the TTL level, the logic level, because the circuit are used there are 5-volt tolerant, but I prefer use another bus translation ACs that as better because the noise margin is better, and also I recommend to Ricardo to change the schematic. We have a work on that. The next step to the discussion is regarding the software inside the PICO, because I remember a few years ago with one of the project, or maybe it's the mother of the project regarding this, is an interface for Sinclair for Spectrum for use two simple TTL ports, like similar to the FDD3, okay? Use 6 bits for communication, no, 5 bits for communication in and out. And maybe it's the base for this project. Is the CX, what is the name? CX, I don't remember exactly. CXPC or CX interface. I don't know.
Are you thinking of the interface 1, Gustavo?
No. This is a create. Let me see if I have.
I think I know what you're talking about. There was an interface that somebody built.
CXPC is an open project, but
yeah.
But it's the base that Ricardo adapt for this creation. Okay. I don't know exactly what kind of state machine are programmed inside the PICO. That's my next discussion with Ricardo when coming, because he is in trouble. We stop the analysis on this project regarding the more specific details. Okay. And also regarding the group and this development, I could assist or share my knowledge in assembler language and also in the basic of the ROM, because I try to, it is possible to change the interface with the system, because use a print USR and then the number is not the real Timex commands. Okay, maybe use open or save or load. I don't know. Maybe we are thinking on a better interface for the program. Okay, that's why I like to discuss with the group and also with Ricardo.
Oh, Gustavo, this is Jeff Burrell. I'd be very interested in being in the loop on this and maybe collaborating with you.
Okay, great. Perfect. Are you in the list? Right, perfect, yes.
And Tim, you want to jump in? Because Tim and I have both hooked up with Ricardo and offered our help as much as we can. Tim more than me.
Okay. Yes, we are in Argentina, like you say, but the problem here is because the parts are not available in the main stores. Okay, it's difficult. We need to import all the parts to create any prototype or something. It's really hard to deploy here. Sometimes I use eBay and also the regular box, the regular boxes, like, I don't know, is sometimes FedEx or UPS, but it's very expensive to move parts from China or US to here. Okay, but we can collaborate with the schematics and also with the software. And also if you need to modify some prompts or patch some prompts, we can do that and also send by email. This is easy for me. Okay, I am working with the real Timex computer, not with any emulator, because I have a full system. I have an FDD3 running with 3 inches floppy, another extra floppy with 3.5 inches, and also one digital for SD. I have 4 drives in total, running on the FDD3 with 64K. I made that upgrade to the system and also run CPM operating system 1 or 2 months before Timex send the real version of CPM to the release version of the CPM to the market.
Gustavo, I have a quick question just going back to your disk drive system that you have. Was that released down in Argentina or you bought that later?
No, I buy this system, but my father buy the system, and also I very young. When I have 20 years old, I have the Timex computer with the all peripheral like FDD drive, and also I have the 2020. I have the Timex computer. I start with the 2068. I never use the 1000 or another model. That's just what my first computer. And also I have 40 years in experience for this assembler language program. On this time, I create many BIOS for CPM and also for computers. Okay, I have experience on the low level. All right.
Gustavo,
Yeah.
where did the 2068s come from? Did they come from Portugal, or were they made locally?
No, for US.
Oh, they were US. Okay.
I have all the NTSC version. I have 3. One in use, the original, and also the rest in the original box.
Nice.
That's when we check that it's working, and that's it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I will thank you for joining us. And please come back and keep updating folks.
Just
Oh,
a
yes.
quick note, David.
Yes.
We know that Timex of Portugal exported 2048 for Argentina.
Right, but it's the second part of the, I don't remember, 84 or 85. Yes, the first computer incoming in Argentina was for US, because it's a remnant of production. I don't know what is the
Remainders, like
yeah,
leftovers.
correct. Yes, because Timex in January of 84 never sent more computers in the store, and I discount. I don't know what is the problem there, but here we receive all the computers, NTSC computers. And also 1 year later, we receive some computer, but not in this quantity, maybe, I don't know, it's 1,000. The quantity, I don't know, but it's the PAL system for imported from Portugal.
Wow.
That's the second 2068 computer that we use here, but it's minor quantity imported from Portugal.
But
I don't know how many was there, but we know they are modified for NTSC.
Sorry, can you repeat?
We don't know how many there were sent to Argentina, but they were not PAL machines. They were NTSC machines for the TV system on Argentina. We are currently waiting for one to arrive, so we can dig into it and see what the changes were.
Yeah, because there's obviously the Timex Sinclair 2068s, right, which are obviously for the North American market, which would obviously be on TSC, and then of course there's, like you said, the Portugal, Timex Portugal created the Timex Computer 2068, right, which is a PAL machine, which is different. They do use pretty much more or less the same SCLD, but you're right, they're PAL machines. The bus is different, right? It's a Spectrum bus on those machines as opposed to
Yes, it
the
is.
TS1000. And, so it's a little different machine. It looks the same more or less because it's in the same case.
It's not the 2068. It was the 2048.
Right, and that was even
The little
more
one,
cut down. Right,
the
right.
little one.
No cartridge
It
port.
was no. It was modified for NTSK to use on Argentina. So we are waiting for one, so we can
okay.
see what changes they were made for the little black one.
Right, right. Yeah, I know there's jumpers for that SCLD that Portugal made to run it in PAL in 50, 60 hertz. There's 2 jumpers for that. So
yes,
One of the problem, but not this problem, but I remember when I test the Portugal version of this computer, the keyboard, the keys are, you need to press with factor, but it's not the same keys exactly, like, or maybe the inside the keyboard, I don't know if the rubber is different.
the keyboard is the same.
Yes.
Probably some keyboards that were more used than others, the keys be a bit harder to press.
Right. Correct. Yes, I detect that. I remember one time only I tested the Portugal version. Okay, no.
So
mainly computers are coming from US.
Gustavo,
yes.
You said, a bunch of computers were sent from the US. Were there a lot of people using the 2068? I mean, there's you and there's Ricardo, so we know there's 2.
No, the problem is we are more than 30 years.
Yeah.
The computer comes to the market, and also the people here normally change the computer.
Well, I think David would meant back the time, right, in 83 or
yeah, back in 83 and 84. Was there a lot of people using the 2068?
Right, correct, exactly. Till 20, I don't know, to 80, 87, maybe 88.
Yeah.
The problem, the main reason to use the computer, the Timex, was not for learning, to programming, learning, or is to gamers. Play, I don't know, I remember the different programs like, I don't know, Flight Simulator or the Crazy Bugs or this kind of game. Then many people try to use the Spectrum programs on the machine and also fail, as we know, and then the computer was discarded. Okay, many people moved the computer, the Timex computer, to the Commodore computer because it's more easy. You have a good floppy support, and also the games, the sound, and that. Maybe it's not. I don't know where is the microprocessor is not better like Timex because it's different family. It's 65, I don't know, 65 or 2 maybe. I don't know what is the Commodore has, but it's better the Sinclair microprocessor. But the really at the end for game or for different application, the people move to the Commodore, okay, and then discard the Timex, all the Timex.
Right.
Timex and also Spectrum. No?
Yeah, same here.
And after that, the next move was MSX. Yeah, you see that. Remember the Spectra Video, this kind of computer. That was the next step on the personal computer like this, and also the PC market. after that. Okay.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. No, but I have this computer because I ham radio amateur, maybe you too. And
Oh,
also,
you're another ham?
right, correct. And also, I create on this time my proprietary program for TTI and also for Morse.
Very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool. That's hilarious.
You guys can have your own SIG. you know?
Right. Right.
The
Right. I'll have
Timex
to get
ham
a-
SIG.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Do ready over, you know, right. That's
Okay.
crazy.
Okay, thank you for sharing with you all this kind of history, because this is my first time on the meeting and also with the contact with different Timex user worldwide. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, David. Thank you for.
Thank Gustavo. It's great seeing you. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Yes. Okay. We are see you maybe at the group and in the next meetings too. Okay.
Well, before you stop talking, I do have a question. So
Yeah.
I'm a little I don't understand. Like, so your device, is it going to pretend it's talking to a tape drive like the Div MMX, or is it going to emulate a disk drive, or how is it going to work? What is it?
For the Timex,
Yeah.
I use a drive SD emulator.
Okay.
This use one of the, I don't know, it was made in France. This specific digital was had the possibility to work with 256 bytes per second. Okay, maybe the
Okay.
Chinese.
Well, let's not get to the technicals. I guess what I'm asking is just a simple question. Is it trying to be like a disk drive, or is it trying to be more like a tape drive, or is it trying to be something else entirely?
No. I replaced the FDD drive for this digital. You have the same connector like Hitachi drives.
Mhm.
So because it's sure interface. And also for the Timex view, you see a drive like a floppy.
So it's going to see it like a floppy. That's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking. Okay.
Yeah. From what Ricardo has, way he's explained it to me, is it'll use the built-in commands, and actually what the way that Ricardo has designed it, it will it'll turn off the internal ROMs and replace those with ROM images in this little flash chip. And he's already rewritten some of those routines so that it, instead of trying to talk to the FDD, it talks to his device.
I see. Okay, that's what I was just wondering, because the Div MMX acts like a tape drive sort of. So
yeah, sort of. The Div MMX, it has a bunch of different things that
it does. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's not. It doesn't try to emulate a floppy, as far as I know. Mine, I've never been able to make it do anything like that. So
no, it doesn't use. It doesn't use the
Well, it has its own,
one
yeah, it has its own
commands.
menu system and
Correct.
Yeah.
everything. So,
but you can save from BASIC. You can tell it to, and you can
Mhm.
act just like it's a tape drive. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
yeah, and the thing that I linked up there, the SVI CAS, you know, we had talked about that on here before, and I've been trying to get one. I guess I missed my first opportunity because I missed the email. But anyway, that thing does act like a tape recorder, but it digitizes everything right onto the SD card, and it can work for all kinds of machines, right? So it's not really designed for the Timex per se. It was designed for the SVI machines, right? The Spectre Video machines over there in Europe, but because it has, when you plug it into your tape thing on those machines, it can actually start and stop the tape, right? It reads those things, so it knows when the computer is starting the tape and stopping it, and it will record programs, and it will play back programs into the machine, right? So it's a real-time thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really nifty device.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to distract us. I was just a little bit confused about that. Like what?
I share with the group the link of my emulator using the FDT3.
Let me copy that link. I saw it come through, but you sent it directly to me.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. I'm gonna post it into the main channel.
But Gustavo's product is it would be kind of nice because you're actually using the built-in commands on the Timex, right? The catalog, the I can't remember all of them, but there's all those were already built in, right, for the anticipation of the disk drive. But
yeah,
we never got there, right?
Ricardo's project, yes.
Or basically micro drives. Actually, those work on the micro drives. So yeah.
Well, but to your point, Carl, the third-party programmer's guide that Jeff Mazer shared with us a while back, I was doing some rereading through it, and it talks about both the micro drives and disk drives.
Yeah.
So there was talk, at least there was, some thought going on about actual physical disk drives and not just those little micro drive things. Another alternate future.
Well, according to Ryan, you're not missing anything, because we hooked up a Commodore 64 yesterday, a 1571 disk drive, and Ryan, I don't guess had ever seen one going before. And he was like, "Oh, I'm not missing anything. I mean, using a tape is faster than that drive."
Well, yeah, that's the Commodore 15.
Well, that's just the Commodores.
I understand that, yeah. But
even the Atari, so the issue there with Commodore and with the Atari is that they're both serial interfaces,
right? Yeah.
Whereas like well, actually, I think that the microdrive is a serial. Serial interface.
It is.
Wow.
Yes.
But it's faster. We're just gonna assume that it's faster.
And the Atari disk drives aren't really that slow. They're actually much faster than the.
I have a question for the group. I investigate the protocol of the communication between the interface one, for example, for a net. You see you have connect different machines using a single cable, okay, 2 wires.
For the network.
For network, right. And also, I see a document that Timex, one of the last computer that was created, maybe introduced this network protocol on that. I don't know if you have an idea if is interoperability between Sinclair and also the Timex, or Timex is a different protocol?
No, it's completely different. I already sent you an email explaining it.
Okay.
The Timex Educational Network, or TENET, as we call it, uses an Intel microcontroller to communicate. It's this Intel microcontroller that controls the protocol. It does the handshake and receives and sends data. It's not the Z80 like in the interface one.
Okay.
So it's completely different.
Right. Okay. This is at the layer 1. Okay. It's different in the cable.
And also the TENET is much more complex than the interface one network.
Okay. Yes. Great. Or if we can investigate maybe the software of that, or maybe for the Timex side, not for the 8031, or also for the C80.
So I think what information exists about that is on Joao's website, the Load ZX Spectrum Museum website. Let me just get the URL, but I don't know. It's my understanding there's only a little bit of information about the 10X thing.
But I see on the museum you have a board, and also, but the ROM is installed on that. But I don't know if it's possible to get a copy of the ROM.
I don't know.
If it's an Intel microcontroller, what is it, like a 8048 or an 8030? You know,
It's an
if
8031.
okay, so it's internal to the microcontroller, but you still probably should be able to dump it. I mean, you should be able to still read it out.
We in the museum are studying it.
Okay.
If you see the picture, you see two ROMs, one near the 8031.
Yes, it's a ROM for the Z80 and a ROM for the 8031.
Correct. Maybe inside.
We are
of the-
studying them.
Yeah, correct. We have the secret.
We are studying them.
Cool.
We do hope to show something in the future.
So
Yeah, because one of the ideas is to create an open project, maybe to connect, like we have our with Ricardo for storage, for mass storage. Maybe we need to create another, like Timex, thinking of this communication. Okay, maybe we can change the layer one because we can move the connection to the internet or the IP, which is the newest, but using the same commands and also the same protocol like Timex use on this machine.
okay.
That is my idea. I wish I would. But the problem is I live here, and also if I live in Portugal, maybe it's more easy. But not here.
Not really. It's not. How do I say it? The Tenet was not released. As João already said in conferences about the Timex network. Timex of Portugal tried to solve it to, I think it was India. I know it was China. It was, but they didn't look interest, and it died short after. We also don't know if we have a working machine, so that's why we are working in the machine we have to see if we can make it work. Probably reproduce it, make clones of it, refine it. We'll see what we can do.
Oh, okay. Yes. Great. No, but I suppose that the ROM inside the prototype of the TNet terminal, or I don't know, maybe should be a mix between the FDD interface and also the TNet, because the new commands work like asterisk, but use a different sign, use exclamation. Those commands enter by the error in the syntax checking for the ROM basic. That's why the enter point maybe is an A, is a start error, and also it's very easy if you check the first character. After that is asterisk or exclamation mark, and that's it. You go to the TNet interface or you go to the FDD commands.
Probably it's the same, since the TNet interface does have the connection for the FDD 3000.
Right. Correct.
But I'm not much of a machine code reader or learner, whatever. I can tell you much. I look at it and it's not much to me. But we have people that know it. They have been reading it, have been studying it. We'll see in the future what we can do.
Okay. But another option maybe is the machine is working. You can.
Well, we still don't know it.
Oh.
We are studying the machine. Of course, this is a hobby. You can't employ your full time on a hobby. You have to work.
Yes. Understand. Yeah.
Gustavo and Johnny, thank you very much. I want to give other people time to jump in.
Okay.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for your help with the email sent to me. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So anybody else want to jump in? We have about half an hour, a little over half an hour left.
If no one else got anything, I could talk about what we talked about yesterday and on Wednesday.
Yeah. Why
Locally.
don't you do that for a few minutes
is that
and
okay?
then
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And I'm going to definitely give Ryan and Carl a chance because basically I'll sum up in maybe a minute here if I can. On Wednesday of this past week, a friend and I who've been friends for about 35 years, we get together, we try once a month or whatever, and we're both into classic gaming. And he came over, and Ryan has saved one of his programs off a cassette tape in the last 2 weeks, I think, since the last meeting, and called Thief, which is kind of a it's kind of like Load Runner. And so I was showing it to my friend Chris, and Ryan, who I've mentioned quite a few times, lives locally to me. I made a video of us playing, and I said, "Hey, we're stuck on this level. How do we get past it?" And then, like, I don't know, an hour later, Ryan shows up at the house. He shows us he's already in that meantime fixed the program, re-uploaded it to the group, and he's like, "Oh, you haven't tried my new version yet?" And I'm like, "What?" So we tried that, we played that, and that was a good time. Ryan stayed for a few hours, and then yesterday we had plans to get together for a few hours, and so Ryan came over around 1:30, and Carl came over about 1:32, and we hung out until around 9:30, and we did mostly Timex stuff. Carl took apart 3 different 1000s, and I'll have him jump in here maybe and tell us what he was looking at. How about that, Carl? Does that work?
Yeah, that'll work. So, obviously, well, Ryan brought 2 1000s, and I brought 1000 over that I had gotten on eBay recently, and I hadn't done anything to it. I haven't looked at it or anything, so I figured, well, Ryan wanted it, or Adam wanted us to bring over stuff, right? So I said, well, I'll bring that over and we'll see if it works, right? So hooked that up, and it just gave a black screen. So, I mean, just a totally black screen, which is kind of strange. I haven't really seen that symptom, or maybe I have, but it's been too long. Anyway, so we kind of opened it up, and it's a pretty later model. It has the 210 ULA in it. But everything looked fine in there. I don't think anybody was ever inside of it. Oh, we did find the heatsink was cockeyed, and I think it was shorting out the +5 volts. So I moved the heatsink over so it wouldn't, short that out. And of course, it still just showed a black screen. And then we started looking at Ryan's. Apparently, Ryan has one that has a little S key cut out because I think somebody, I don't know, maybe dropped a cigarette on it, or who knows what. Back in, how those, maybe people don't know the cigarette burns back in the day. But anyway, it looked like maybe somebody dropped a cigarette on the S key and it caused some damage to it, and they cut it out. And Ryan's a little OCD, so he actually saved it and taped it to the back of the Timex 1000 in case it
I don't
could
think
ever
Ryan
be
did that.
fixed.
I think when he got that machine.
Yeah, that's the way it came.
Oh, okay. So somebody else was that OCD and actually saved it and stuck it to the bottom of the machine.
Oh my
I
Lord.
might have done the same thing, although not. So you're correct.
Okay. So we opened that one up, we've actually plugged it in, see if it worked, and it did work, but it was also a very, very dark screen. But you could kind of see like the little square K down in the bottom. It was kind of acting like one of those ULAs that was missing the back porch. Very, very dark screen, and so we started messing around, or I started messing around in the modulator, because there's a coil in there that they just physically kind of spread apart and squeeze together, right? And so I was kind of changing that, and you could make it a little better, but we could never get it where it was like a nice bright white. And then we said, well, maybe it is the ULA, because that one was the 184 ULA. It was an older one, not the 210. And so we opened up the other 1000 that Ryan had brought, and that one had a 210 ULA in it. And actually that one worked, right? We plugged that one in, nice white bright screen. It's just one row on the keyboard, or the 6, 7, 8, 9 and 0 keys don't work. which probably is, obviously a bad trace on the flex, keyboard flex there. Anyway, so I swapped the ULAs between those two, and well, the one that had the dark screen now had a nice white screen. So obviously it has something to do with the ULA. They are different, right? It is the earlier one, but maybe a composite mod on that. That's kind of the other thing I think Ryan was going for, is getting one of these 1000s to Adam. Although I don't know that he really wants one of those.
They're trying to pull me in, David. They're trying to pull me in. I have a 2068. In fact, I should thank Carl, because about, I don't know, one of the first times he was over, I lent him a broken 2068, and he brought it back yesterday working, refined the colors. So now I have another one.
Well,
So,
and Adam, in the not too distant future, maybe you'll be able to get Ingo's keyboard once that's up and going for your 1000, so you can actually.
I don't have a 1000.
That's right.
and then Adam, you're going to be one of us.
Oh Lord, one of us.
Adam,
Yeah, go ahead,
Stuart has one of the, or I think he might still have some of the 210 ULAs. I bought 2 from him a while back to replace a dead 184 ULA. So that one will have the back porch on it. Otherwise, you can do a composite mod with a 5x5 timer to create your own back porch.
I've got a 2068. I've got color. Okay, I've got all I need. 16 colors.
But you're going to need to know this when you get your 1000 going.
Oh.
You will go down the dark side.
Well, I know there's also somebody in, thank God those guys over in the UK, but they've created a replacement for the ULA, right? It's a FPGA or something like that that they made. And so I definitely need one. I don't know if I have any spares. I don't think I do. Because like I said, the one that I brought over is just, it seems like the ULA is bad on it because it's just a black screen. We did swap the CPU and the ROMs, so those do work. So, I mean, that's not a problem with those. It's definitely the ULA in that machine. The dark screen one that Ryan has, I don't know if the composite mod will be good enough for that, or if we just update it with a later ULA, right? And resolve that issue. It's just, like you say, they haven't made those things in decades. And so, whichever one you find is it good? Is it bad? It's just going to be all used old stock, right? And so the ones that you get from, unless you go to China and they may say, hey, AliExpress, we've got brand new ones, as they always do. But good luck with, you're kind of at your own peril there with that. But I'm thinking of maybe getting 1 or 2 of those replacement ones and seeing, how that works in one of these 1000s, and maybe I'll get 2 so we can try it out in the other one, and then Adam will have a modern TS 1000.
Okay, yeah. I'll take that. It has to be modern. It has to be post 2000. Okay.
And I noticed Adam wanted to try the keyboard on the 1000. So you can talk about your what you thought about that.
For the real experience.
Okay. I have a few things to add as far as spare parts go for anybody fixing up or wanting to upgrade their ZX81s. I'm happy to ship the spare parts that I'm getting from Ginger Electronics in Germany. He gives me a very, very nice discount. And so I'm happy to ship, if you want the video adapters, the composite video adapters, which work very well. I've personally installed 10 of them in ZX81s. So, and you can have those for like $7 a piece. And if you want keyboards, I offer 2 options. One is the tactile keyboards that I get from him for like $11. Carl, if you want to try a few, and they're fantastic. I mean, it really change your experience with the computer. Of course, yeah, it's really
well. We need something to sell Adam on it, so that might be good. Might be good to put on the one that we give him.
Stuart,
Yeah.
Do you have a website, or for those of us who can't remember things from 1 minute to the next?
Well,
Yep.
I have a website. It's kind of a mishmash. I haven't actually offered anything for sale on my website in a long time, but I sell everything on eBay. But then every product that goes out that's for repair, I mean, or upgrading, or might need any technical notes, I send people to the website. So for installing, for a bunch of variations on ways people install the composite upgrades, whether it's in the modulator housing or outside, I've got a lot of photos up there and advice. So yeah, if you go to Zebra Systems, one word.com, that's my website. Certainly take a look. The other thing I have, if for some crazy reason people want original ZX81 membranes from back in 1980 or whenever they were, I have a bunch of those. So for some reason you have a preference for that.
But those are those going to actually be working? Like, or are they going to have the same problem?
I've been sitting on them for a long time. What happened was I never tried to sell them, but I have them like in bags like this, and I don't know if it's because the bags kept the oxygen out, or I'm lucky, or different batches were different. But actually, very recently, I decided, well, let me sell some. Well, here I gave Ingo some, but I actually made eBay upgraded, and you can now put videos on your listings.
Nice.
So this was, I thought, well, I made my very first video for an eBay listing where I take this and I said, well, this is a good use to show that, this is flexible. So anyway, I have these if
well, Stuart, I'd certainly be interested in at least 10. I because especially if they're still in the bags, because I've got probably 4 or 5 or 6 1000 somewhere, but they've been exposed to the air all this year, so I'm certainly sure they're going to crack.
Okay.
Carl, are you planning to sell those on the street corner or something?
No,
I people here in a group.
Well, it's just like ULAs, man. I'd like to have keep a stock. I'm not going to sell them, but
yeah, I actually haven't decided exactly what to do with them. But also, well, we should just talk on the phone and get each other email calls, so I can get you a care package for
that'll work.
Help fix up a bunch of ZX81s. The one other reason I haven't exactly put these up for sale until just very recently, and it actually Ingo's actually the reason, I think, because Ingo bought a kit from me some years ago, and he said, I could really use one if you have one, because I cannibalized my kit and used the keyboard for something. Now my kit is incomplete. Well, I could certainly feel for him. So I think.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it, Stuart. Thank you.
So that got me thinking, well, it never occurred to me that, I'm selling nice keyboards with little clicky switches. Why would, so why bother to put these up? But, there's that bunch of collectors who might have a ZX81 and they want to put it back, not better, but original. So that's why I just put one up for $20. But anyway, I do have a bunch. But the other reason I haven't put them up is because another spare part that I have is I have in excess of 50 clamshells, absolutely brand new, for ZX81s. I haven't decided exactly what to do with them. And that's why I kind of held these. Actually, a lot of those come with a membrane. I opened up a cube that normally is, when I got them, would have 33 ZX81 kits. And I opened up one cube and it didn't have kits. It had nothing, but had all brand new packaging of ZX81, the box, the clamshell, and inside was nothing but the top and bottom piece of the plastic, the case. And inside had a little plastic bag, and all it had was 4 new rubber feet, a set of screws to put the case together, and like it looked like parts to change the modulator. It had like a resistor, transistor, and that's it. So I have those 35 cases and they had one of these in them. That's it. So I haven't decided what to do. I mean, partly it may go to the, I may combine those cases with the clicky keyboards. I'm still working. I have Tim help me from New Zealand figure out why my key presses would register on my USB adapter. It would work in Notepad or in Microsoft Word or Excel, but it wouldn't work on the 81 emulator. And he made abundantly clear with a few lines of Arduino code that emulator is actually behaving like a ZX81 so much that its debouncing mechanism, it wants to see a key pressed through a couple of cycles of the 50 or 60 hertz timing of the ZX81, whatever that routine is. I haven't looked at it. And so if I emulate that, it will work into 81. And sure enough, it does. I haven't continued to get the code fully working, but I'm sure with that advice, I will do that. But he got me so excited about learning how to become a proper programmer that I spent more hours the last week learning Visual Studio Code and how to properly use Git. And that's what I've been doing and enjoying for the last week, but we're going to get there. But anyway, so, but Carl, definitely you and I should talk. And
yeah, I'd like to get some cases from you too, just, since they're brand new. And I mean, I don't know if the membranes on them will be any good because they've been probably exposed.
No, all the stuff in those big boxes aged very well as far as tarnishing goes. The cardboard was almost this on them, they were like almost a yard cube. And the cardboard was so thick and they were so well taped for air shipment that when I would open a box, I think that, I know cardboard is not, oxygen molecules should get through it. But I'm just saying, as far as tarnish goes, all the parts in those kits and everything seem to age very well, considering the alternative where.
Okay, right.
Certainly, in contrast, when I bought spare parts from Sinclair, from their actual repair center, I would get everything, including kits that people sent back. And if you want to see examples of people who don't know how to solder, I had a bunch of those. I literally had boxes of like 30 per box marked good or bad. And, I made a mistake and I threw them out about 10 years ago. When I tried to get from 2 garages down to 1, I determined that all those membranes were useless. And we just threw them out. And had I realized that, people are making other membranes, I would have thrown them out, or that they had good ULAs in them and they had all kinds of parts. But I can only cry about that one. But we'll talk. And the other thing is, Adam, if I have it here in Brooklyn, I fixed up 10 ZX81s at the end of the
You
summer.
guys are trying to get your hooks in me.
And I will send you one. I'm going to send you one that has the mods in them that I put. So they're going to have I'm going to send you one with the new keyboard upgraded for 16.
That's it. I'm quitting this group. I'm quitting it.
16K and the video mod. So you just plug it in.
Oh, wow. That's be really there. So you got 16K in there
That's
already.
all it took is for me to say I didn't want one to get one. That's
right,
No one else
exactly.
do that. It only works one time.
And
Adam, you can't.
One other thing happened this week. Only recently, now that I'm playing with eyeball stuff and putting, what I call my leftovers. Now that the kits are out of the way, I'm looking at, okay, what's left? It's interesting. And this is the first time since the 80s I've actually turned on these computers and played with them. So anyway, I don't know if we've ever had Trevor Jacobs on this
No,
with us,
no.
but he's a customer. And I don't know what I sold him recently, but I think, yeah, anyway, but he has been in contact with me. I've told him about this group, and he decided he wanted to design a board to upgrade the ZX81 RAM to 32K. I think other people have designed it. I think I've seen it out
Yeah.
there. But anyway, he sent me this week a bunch of these. I don't know, this camera doesn't focus. Maybe
yeah.
it'll focus. So this is a little 28 pin printed circuit board. He did a really nice job. And so we just got one address decoder chip and a RAM. And I literally got it yesterday. And this is one of the boards I had upgraded. I made, like I say, this is one of the 10 I fixed up this summer. I can get my camera to focus. It doesn't like
Put it in your face.
Closer to your face. Yeah.
Yeah, closer to your face. There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
So anyway, this is one I had fixed up. So the mods I put on it, this is what I did to 10 this summer. It had, here's the contrast. Here's like, this was my old mod, was just the chip with the, 4 pins bent out. And I took it out of here and put his mod in. So it's got 32K now. And these are the mods that we're making to all these. So I changed the regulator to 7805 as a switching regulator. I put a heat sink on it. Couldn't find black ones, but I got aluminum ones to keep this a little cool. And something works better. And yeah, the RAM. So anyway, really, this only takes one. The other mod that you make with 16K, you've got 4 wires. So here it's got 5 wires because he's one more.
Stuart, can I have you pause there for just a second? I'm just looking at that, and if this was the day before yesterday, I would never have seen one of those before. But now, since Carl opened up 3 of them yesterday, basically, I guess that's a ZX81 though, right? And not
right.
but they
Yeah,
look basically the same to me anyway.
Yeah, my camera's trying to autofocus. You know what?
Yeah.
Let me take the background. I think
There you go.
if I take my background out or the blur, yeah.
It looks like you and Adam got the same green screen.
Well, he's here too. He's local to me. You don't know?
I learn how to use this better. Let's see. Background effects. I want none. And then.
And you need to turn your video back on too.
He's in the middle of the settings, so that's why it's
okay.
showing up that way.
Yeah, this way the computer isn't confused at what to blur or not blur. It's doing it a little bit better. But yeah, that's what it looks like. So anyway, you get your 5 address lines here, and then he takes the memory request and the chip select here. It's a very nice, simple board. So
is that somebody here in the U.S. stored, or is that overseas as well?
And I don't know. We haven't even discussed. I knew he was doing it. I gave him some support in some other ways, but he said, I'm going to send you one. So instead of 1, he sent me 5 printed circuit boards and 3 assembled units. So I don't know. I guess he wants me to try selling them. I have to talk to him this afternoon. I told him after the World Cup in this meeting, I'll give him a call. But I'm hoping either he'll sell them on eBay or he'll have them somewhere, or I'll sell them because it's great. You're doing no more work than you are to put in 16K and 32K. And the other reason that was motivating them, actually, our discussion started more with the Memotech or HRG. His interest is in the various high-res graphics programs and software exists for the ZX81. And when he prototyped it, before he made the printed circuit board, he checked it on a number of high-res graphics programs. So that was his interest in going for 32K, was to get them working. So I actually sent me a file, which I, probably after this session, I will try to check out some of the high-res graphics utilities with this 32K.
So Stuart, can you encourage him to, can you like get him to email me or something or hook us up?
I'll hook us up.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'll be
I'll
nice to have.
I'll either get him in the next session or I'll have him talk to you or whatever. But anyway, he did it's really nice work, and it's a very simple product, but the gain is fine. And Gustavo there in Argentina, I was listening carefully because everybody in this group knows I've talked, I'm repeating myself constantly. The keyboards I have from Germany fix the keyboard problem. The video composite adapters, they fix the video composite. The third big link for me is the loading and saving of tape of programs. So I'm interested in what you're doing. I know there's the ZX Duino as far as loading. There's people just using OTLA or whatever it's called and using their PCs for tapes. There's that
ZX
most
Span.
interesting. What?
The ZX Spand?
Oh, ZX Band is a wonderful solution. I actually would sell that in the United States if I could get it, but I looked into it. It's not working out. But there's that other one, I forget what it's called, what they actually have an ESP32 acting as a web server.
Right, the WESP.
The WESP, that's another interesting one. So Gustavo, if you don't really know about those, all of those, I don't know which are open source, which are not, we can look at their code, but the elements of all of them have to, they're all common. They all need a file system to pick which file. They all need to convert from P files or different formats to waveforms. So you should, look at that. I'd be interested in that group. Like I say, that's the third, for me, that's like the third most interesting, the third part of making your ZX81 something you want to play with. The video, the keyboard, the missing one is.
Really, Stuart, you just need to not turn off your computer. Then you don't ever have to save to tape.
Yeah.
So,
David, it's probably about time we start closing it out because we've just got a couple of minutes left.
Okay, so just one more minute. This week, literally, I said, well, I did have ULAs in tubes, but now that I'm fixing up ZX81s, I also had. I think I'm going to need all of the ULAs I have to get working ZX81s. So I contacted. I'm really bad with names, but the what are they calling it? A VLA, the one that's made with
the 81.
That's using FPGA.
Right.
They sell for like $35, so they're not exactly cheap. And as it turns out, the designer and manufacturer in New Zealand, Timmy's a neighbor of yours.
I bought stuff of them.
Oh, you bought some of them. So, okay, you can address that. It turns out they're both, the parts are expensive and they're labor intensive and they're soldered on both sides. Now, of course, I'm sure if you went to spent more time, you'd have a Chinese factory making it by hand. And it doesn't matter if it's both sides, they can make anything. But anyway, he's making them. And so he didn't really offer anything other than like, 10% discount to sell them in America. So I decided not to sell them, but they are good. And also I have other interesting aspects of it is it does more than replace the ULA.
Right. Yes.
So
I think that would be a very good topic that someone who has one, or maybe I can get the guy making them on a Zoom, one of our Zooms, actually tell him in an email that we have these Zooms and we'd love to hear more, because I'd like to hear more specifically about it fixes your video problem. I think it adds 32K of RAM. So I don't remember what else it does, but it does at least those two major things. So
Stuart, what is it called again? I'm going to write this down.
VLA81. I just made a note to.
Oh, did? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Anyway, that's a good product. Certainly, if it solves so many problems, then $35 doesn't look like that, unreasonable price. Anyway,
I was going to say it's got a setting that you can flip the inverse to video, which is a bit easier on the eyes. You get white on black instead of black on white, and you can. There's a whole lot of soft settings. You can map the extra RAM into various places. You can put it down in the sort of missing gap between the ROM and the RAM, and he also does a spectrum a ULA, and he does some microdrive stuff as well. He's got quite a few products.
Yeah, I put his link in the chat, and it'll be in the meeting notes when I post this to YouTube. So all that stuff from chat.
I think he has a presence on Tindy.
Yep.
Yes.
United
Yep,
States.
he does.
And he will ship from New Zealand. So if you're interested in products, just go to Tindy.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got his V drive stuff, that replace the virtual micro drives. I have that stuff here. It's just I never bought the ULAs because I but now I guess I need some. So but anyway, one thing real quick too is how long does it take to boot the ZX81 with the 32K on there? I mean, you plug it in and it's just going to sit there because it's got to check RAM, right? It just sits there until
it only checks a 16K, so it's just the same as a 16K RAM. As far as the ZX is concerned, it only does that spot from where normal RAM would sit. So
okay. I thought it would check the whole 32 and take like a minute.
he prefers you. He's got his own shop. One of the links David dropped through that V Drive ZX. He prefers you buy it through there. He just makes it's a bigger footprint with Tindy, and I think it's slightly cheaper through his site. So
yeah, Tindy's a bit of a pain in the rear for certain things. Once again, this has been absolutely fantastic, and it's been entirely too short. I've got a bunch of notes.
Count at the next meeting of how many ZX81s have been fully resurrected.
I have a bunch of notes for things like side meetings, special interest group type things, and I'm going to follow up with some of you guys either individually or on the group list about doing those things.
And I'll give a report on my 6 Timex 1000s I own by then.
There you go. Yes.
Hey, Stuart. Hey, Stuart. Do those membranes have rub out or do they have enter? Are they the US versions or are they
no, they're
British?
All British.
CX81.
So there's rub out and yeah. Well, they say
says new line, right?
Yeah.
Wow, I might have different batches. You know what? I never realized that. I evidently have 2 kinds. I never look closely, but I'm staring at them. And one says rub out, the other says delete, and one says new line, the other says enter. So I evidently have both types.
Well, those 1000 ones are more valuable, I think. They're stored.
Yeah, well, I have a US 80. I have a US ZX81 that I bought the one. They were only doing the British versions.
Okay, well, I didn't realize I had both types, but now I will actually have to get them all in one place, which won't happen until April. They're at my summer house mostly, but I have enough here. Yeah, so, but I never looked at them because I have about 4 different bags, probably 100 of them. We'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah, I prefer the
David, when is that next meeting going to be?
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you,
sorry.
Gustavo. Yeah, you guys, you guys got to stop.
Yeah.
Gustavo, thank you for coming. I hope to see you at future meetings. And the same for Johnny Red. It's great to have the international presence at these things. Our next meeting is, I believe, just going to double check here, is going to be January 2nd. Is that the first? That is the first Monday. Yep, the first Monday of the new year is January 2nd. So my suggestion is have a good time, New Year's Eve. You have a full day to recover. I expect no hangovers on the 2nd. And then our next meeting after that will be on January 15th, because that is actually the 3rd Sunday. The first Sunday of the year is the 1st. So Ryan asked in the chat, what happens to all the links and stuff from the chat. I summarize all that stuff and put it into the notes that appears underneath the video. It's not entirely obvious when you go to YouTube when you see that, but that's where you'll find all the stuff that went into the chat, the links and a little summary of what we talked about and stuff for the folks who didn't attend, and then for the folks who want those links.
Would it be easy enough to cross post that to the group?
I will do that, yes, because I get a saved copy of that, and so I'll post it to the group today, so folks have immediate access to that stuff. And with that, thank you very much, everyone. And I will see you in the new year. I hope you
Bye,
have
guys.
an excellent Christmas and,
Happy New Year.
good time off.
All right.
Bye,
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Have a
Take care,
good one.
everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Good seeing you.
Bye.